Good morning, everyone. This talk's only going to take 10 minutes, and it's kind of like a speed date. So don't fall asleep, because we're following Randy, and I'm not as dynamic as he is. Kintail Honey started 70 years ago this year, actually, and its focus is on honey packing, honey production, pollination, and live bees. It's owned by James Ward and his two sons, Damien and Jason. We have 4 businesses, the main ones owned by the Ward boys, and the other 3 branches are owned by key staff and a mixture of us. And the system we operate works for the 4 businesses, 6,000 odd hives, 3,000, 2,000 and 1,000. Okay, so we've been using this system for 20 years, and back 20 years ago, odd years ago, I came to Kintail and they had little notebooks in each truck. And the guys were going out and they were coming back with notebooks that said they'd been to Brown's and they'd recorded the hive conditions and whether they were queenless, queen right, and tra-la-la. And then the next name down was no name, but we knew that they were, you know, they were in good condition, or all the details about them, but we didn't actually know where they'd been. And it was the same for the next place down, the next place down, the next place down. So the information was pretty useless. And it came down to a literacy issue. We had great beekeepers, but they couldn't actually write very well or spell. So they just didn't. So the system I kind of developed was simple, it's free, it's effective, it's still working. And it initially started using the old Apiary system for hive recording before ApiWeb. Now we use ApiWeb, and we get the information sent to us in Excel format, and you do have to stand on your head a little bit and beg with Murray, Reid and Byron to get it in that format, but I'm sure if you talk to them, they'll do it. Before you request it, make sure you have your beekeeper numbers added in, and so that you have your runs sorted out. And this helps immensely later when you do your ADR, because your list and the ApiWeb list are parallel, and they make sense. When the form comes, it has loads of columns that are some secret squirrel stuff that I don't understand, that Assure uses. And I just clear out all those columns, just delete them all out, and keep the columns that you need, and then add in areas to suit where you go and your recording needs. And one day, you know, when ApiWeb's upgraded, I think it'll be a lot more manageable to just kind of cut and paste it into an iPad and have the same kind of thing without having to have a new screen for every little detail you record. So this is what we've got. My place is number 110, just in case you all think that you're going to find where all our hives are. So these are all fictitious places and areas. And I'm a bit blind, I can't quite see there. Along the left-hand column's our order number, and the next column over is the MAF ID number. Now those numbers, you know, they stay with the yard and they never change for that GPS place. The next column over is the beekeeper name, and of course they change quite a lot. And the next column over is the road name. Along the top, we put in an order, and Damien dictates what he wants for each round to me, and I just, you know, change it for each round. So we know we've got an order. He can tell the beekeepers which order he wants them to do it in for the day. He might have some special requirements. They might need a four-wheeler somewhere, or there might be a crop and he wants them to do it last when the truck's not so heavy, or whatever. He's got his needs. The next column records the date. The next column records the beekeepers that went there. The next one is how many hives. We know whether we've got failing queens, virgins. We know if we've got dead hives, if they've got a box out there, if they're just a dead hive and a floor and a lid and no box. We know if we've got singles, if they're 1 box, if they're 2 boxes. And we know if the hives are nice and clean around them, if they're fed, and potential pollination hives. We've taken the entrance guards out, the bands off, and we've probably got propolis mats on because they've got no strips in. Down the bottom, we add a footer, and that updates each time with the date when I print a new set of sheets for them. And the beekeepers also, in filling in their initials on that sheet, they're attesting that they have inspected for AFB. And that's our expectation every time they open and work a hive. And then we usually have a little comment about what kind of round it is, just so we know what they're up to. And I'm not going to bore you with every round we do. I'm just going to skip through a few. And so one of the rounds we do is our reversing round, and at that point we shore up on our pollination hives that they're set up to auditable standard. In our area, you have to be a wee bit careful because they steal the hives without grass on the top under the stone. So we have that all organised. We know who's been there, what the hives are like, if there's anything special we need to know for next time. We do a lot of pollination, and we put hives into apples, we put hives into blueberries and kiwi fruit. And so we record those movements. Once again, it's paper-based. So we know the date the hives go into the orchard, we know the crew that's done it, we know which truck's been used, we know where they've picked the hives up from, we know how many hives are left on site. And that little downward arrow means that we move some from one spot to the other. Maybe the farmer was wanting to put a crop in or something. And we know which orchard they've gone to. Similarly, when we pull them out, we know which orchard we've picked them up at, we know where we've put them down at all the different back at their yards, and we know how many's left in the yard. And those little slips of paper, they go on a bulldog clip and go back to the office. Later on, we get to honey pulling. So each truck, I'm just going to move forward a slide first of all. Each truck has a pile of pre-populated harvester declarations. So I put in those words with the RMP number and our registered number and so on, and that just saves some little gritty little auditor picking me up because they've put the wrong RMP number later on. Ooh. And so that number 1713, that's the number I put on the sheet, and we start out with, so like 2017, 1701, 1702, and carry on like that. And going back a slide, you can see that there's 1713 is populated for those groups of yards they pulled that day. And the MEF numbers are picked up on that harvester declaration, that's off that sheet, and how many boxes from each yard are picked up on it as well. So those two things kind of duplicate each other. On the truck, you can see Alan McCaw's nice drip trays, and those stacks of boxes have that number on them as well, either as a card stapled on the side, or some of our branches use a sticker. So they stay as a batch. And then in drumming off down that bottom lot, I can't work the mouse jams on this thing, so I'm not going to try and touch it. I've had bad luck with mouses this week. So you can see that bottom lot of drumming off ties back to that harvester declaration number. So the next, just before winter, we do our wintering round. We know that what date we've pulled the strips out. Of course, there's a round saying when we put the strips in, and we know when we've pulled the strips out, and we know exactly what's out there in the way of dead hives or any problems. We also keep a wee whiteboard. Sorry, it's all blanked out, but some of you come from our area, and we just can have a quick overview of where we're at any stage. So in summing up, there's loads of new ideas and technology out there for recording information with all sorts of levels of recording, such as how many minutes you spend on a hive. What you have to do is decide, is that investment to buy a program of value to you, when in reality you have a job to do, when you work a beehive and the time it takes to work it is the time it takes. The objective is to do a good job on each hive and do it properly and have records that are sufficient for the task and meet regulatory requirements. Remember, you have a hive tool in one hand, you've got the smoker or a frame in the other, maybe the smoker's between your legs. How are you going to hold a technical recording device and do your job? That's me.